All right, guys. So here's a second day of solving radical equations. So yesterday's problems, we only had um, one radical on one side. Now you'll see these problems. We're going to step it up a little bit. Now we have two radicals. All right. So yesterday I was showing you guys about um, changing it um, to a rational exponent. Now I just want to show you guys a little bit different. All right, there's multiple ways of doing problems, and I always try to show you guys different ways so you get comfortable doing it. So if we think about this, do you guys agree? Since there's no index, there's an index of two sitting there. All right, let's make it look like a two. All right, so there's an index of two. So remember, when there's no index there, square root. Think of two. Now, when I do these, how do I get rid how do I get rid of that index of 2? So the last lesson I was showing you guys change this to the 1/2 power, but now and then we would raise both sides to the second power. Well, in this case, I just want to show you that when you do this, you can think about it as just the square root of x plus 6 minus 2. All right, that negative 2, that minus 2 is not underneath the square root symbol. So it's going to make it a little bit tougher. All right, so I don't want to hear any crying or complaining yet. These problems are tough. Okay, you're not going to get many for homework, but make sure you please give it a try. All right, so going back to this, keeping in mind there's a 2 sitting there. All right, that index is 2. Well, how do I get rid of that? Well, what if I raised both sides to the second power? Do you agree that that 2 oh, sorry, wrong one. I'm scratching out the wrong 2 there. All right, so do you agree that this 2 and that 2 will cancel each other out there? All right, that's what we want to have happen. But now over here on the left side, since we actually do have two terms, one that's not under the, one that's under the radical and one that's not under the radical, we're gonna have to do something a little bit different. So what happens when you have something to the second power? So let's say we had x minus 3 to the second power. Remember what you do. You write x minus 3 two times, right? And then you would multiply, double distributive property, FOIL, whatever it is, right? Whatever you call it. Same thing here. Same thing. We're going to write this thing out twice. So I have the square root of x plus 6 minus 2, and then the square root of x plus 6 minus 2 again. Now on the right side, we already talked about that these two are going to cancel each other out. So we just get rid of the radical. Okay? We get rid of that radical. Now, let's go back, and I'm going to use the colors here, and again, I keep saying this, I hope it doesn't screw you guys up, but I'm going to use these colors here hoping that it'll make some sense. So when I multiply these two, do you agree I'm going to multiply this times that? All right, so when I multiply those two together, the square root of x plus 6 times the square root of x plus 6, well, that was like doing this right there. It was like doing that part. So the square root's just going to go away. So I'm left with x plus 6. All right. Now, what happens when I do the square root of x plus 6 times negative 2? Well, when I multiply those together, it just becomes negative 2 times the square root of x plus 6. All right. So I just took that negative 2. I just took that negative 2, and really I just threw it right in front. Okay. Please don't overthink this. Please do not overthink. All right. Now, we took care of the first, we took care of that times that, and we took care of this times this. Now, let's take care of the negative 2 times this. Okay, same exact step we just did. It's going to be negative 2 times the square root of x plus 6. All right, same exact step. All right, then we get down to the easy part. Negative 2 times negative 2, which gives us positive 4. Now I'm just going to drag this stuff along. Okay, x minus 2. Now I'm just going to focus in on the left side of the equal sign. That's all I'm going to do. Just focus in on the left side because I got a lot of crap going on here. Let me look for like terms first. All right. So I have an x here, but there's no other x's. Do not make the mistake and say there's an x and there's an x there either. All right. Those are trapped underneath the radical. They're trapped underneath that square root symbol. So I can't say those are like terms. So what am I going to do with that x? I'm just going to bring it down. But then I have plus 6 plus 4. All right. Those are like terms. So 6 plus 4 gives me 10. Now, do I have any other like terms? Yes, I do. Square root of x plus 6, square root of x plus 6. Those are like terms. So what am I going to do? I'm just going to combine the negative 2 and that negative 2. So negative 2 minus 2 is negative 4 times the square root of x plus 6. All right, so I combined all my like terms on the left side. Okay, again, just brought that x down. Added the 6 plus 4. Those are like terms. And then the square root of x plus 6, the square root of x plus 6, those are like terms. So I just combined that negative 2 and that negative 2 to give me that negative 4. Okay, I'm hoping that that's okay with you guys. Now let's just copy the crap down on the left side. Okay, now if you look, there's an x there, there's an x there, there's an x there. All right, this is where it gets a little tricky because now what I want to do is I want to move all the x's to one side of the equal sign. But this x right there, the one that's still highlighted yellow, is trapped underneath. All right, it's trapped underneath the square root. So the only way I can get to that x eventually, all right, the only way I can get to that x is by moving everything, get rid of everything. So how do I get rid of everything? Well, what happens if I subtract x from both sides? All right, keeping like terms lined up. What else could I do? I could subtract 10 from both sides. And again, you notice keeping like terms together. All right, so what happens? That goes away, that goes away. I'm left with negative 4 times the square root of x plus 6 is equal to, well, negative x minus x. That cancels. So then I'm left with negative 2 minus 10 gives me negative 12. All right, hopefully so far so good. All right, all I did was I just moved. I'm trying to get rid of everything to the right side of the equal sign just so that I can get to that x right there. All right, that's my goal right now, is just to get to that x right now. Okay, now I have this negative 4 sitting out in front. So the way we say that is negative 4 times. Well, how do I get rid of that negative 4? I'm going to divide. I'm going to divide both sides by negative 4. All right, and what happens? Negative 4 divided by negative 4 cancels, gives me 1. So I'm left with the square root of x plus 6 is equal to 3. All right. You notice how we're getting closer and closer to getting that x by itself. Well, just like we did way up here, and just like I showed you in the lesson yesterday. Remember, there's a 2 sitting right there. Well, how do I undo this? Well, what happens if I raise both sides to the second power? Well, those 2's cancel, that exponent of 2 and that index of 2 cancel. So the square root symbol goes away. 3 squared gives me 9. And then, just like you've always done, subtract 6 from both sides. X is equal to 3. All right, so there's our solution. But we do have to check to see, is it extraneous or not? All right, so we do have to check. We always have to check. So I'm saying that we have a solution of x is equal to 3. All right, now what am I going to do? I'm going to take it, and everywhere I see x, I'm going to plug it back into the equation. Okay, so I have the square root of x plus 6 minus 2 is equal to the square root of x minus 2. All right, so now just plug that 3 in. So I have 3 plus 6 underneath the square root, that minus 2 that's not under, and then 3 minus 2. All right, over here on the left side. 3 plus 6 is just 9. Square root of 9 minus 2 is equal to. Over here on the right side, over there on that side, 3 minus 2 gives me 1. Square root of 9 is 3 minus 2. The square root of 1 is 1. So 3 minus 2, all right, 1 equals 1. So since it does equal, then I know that x equals 3 is a solution. All right, let's move on to this problem. All right, another one that's similar. Okay, another one that's similar. So again, if you want to pause the video, give this problem a try yourself. All right. So again, keeping in mind, there's 2 sitting there. So what am I going to do? I'm going to raise both sides to the second power. Okay? So what then I have the square root of x plus 6. All right? Plus 1 is equal to, oh, I'm sorry. I'm getting way ahead of myself. Times, I apologize, guys, times x plus 6 plus 1. That takes care of those 2 right there. Right? I squared it, so it takes care of that 2. Now, this equals, remember, these cancel each other out, so I'm just left with 7 minus x. Okay, 7 minus x. Now, again, let's go through, and we're going to do FOIL, double distributive property. We have to multiply. And again, I'm going to use these colors. So hopefully, you'll be able to stick around. It'll help you out. So the first times that first. So what happens there? When you multiply those 2 together, because we think about that as one term because of that square root over it, it just becomes x plus 6. Then I'm going to take that first term times that one. So now we're doing the outside terms. Or if you want to think about it, we did that one. Now we're going to do that one. Okay, so I'm not sure how you do it, if you draw the arrows or how you do this for yourself. So I'm trying to show different ways. Okay, so now I'm left with plus, well, I don't really need that 1 that's right there, but right, I really don't need this 1, but I'm going to put it just so that it helps you maybe with some other problems. All right, now we're going to do the 1 times that. All right, or this times that, however you want to think, however you're thinking about it. So again, I don't need that 1. I don't need that 1 that's sitting there, but for some of you guys, it seems to help. And then I'm going to do the last times the last. So plus 1. And then just like the last problem, I'm just going to bring that nonsense down. 7 minus x. Okay. Again, let's go through, find some like terms. Well, I look at this whole thing on the left side. I'm just looking at the left side there. I only see 1x. All right? I only see that 1x sitting right here. So I'm just going to drag it down. Can't do anything with it. I'm going to drag it down. But I do have that 6, and then I have a 1 there. All right, so 6 plus 1 is going to give me 7. And then I do have more like terms. Square root of x plus 6, square root of x plus 6. So I do have some more like terms. So like I did last time, what am I going to do? I'm just going to combine those numbers that are in front. 1 plus 1 gives me 2 times x plus the square root of x plus 6 is equal to 7 minus x. Again, I just dragged that stuff down. All right, I haven't done anything with it yet, so I'm just dragging it along. All right, just like last time, I want to get to this x. I need to get to that x. I need to get rid of everything. So I'm going to get rid of this x plus 7. I'm going to move it. All right, let's get rid of it. Of course, I always erased way too much stuff. All right, how do I get rid of it? I'm going to subtract x from both sides, keeping like terms together. And then I'm going to subtract 7 from both sides. What happens? That cancels, that cancels. And then even on this side, we got that to cancel, right? So it actually made this problem a little bit easier because it could have been ugly. I have 2 times the square root of x plus 6 is equal to these like terms, negative x and a negative x. Don't make the mistake and put 0. It's negative 2x. All right. Now what do? I have to get rid of that 2 there. How do I get rid of that 2? I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I'm left with the square root of x plus 6 is equal to negative x. Now again, how do I get rid of that square root on the left side? Well, because it has an index of 2, I'm going to square both sides. All right. X plus 6 is equal to negative x times negative x. Think about it like this, please, so that you're not screwing it up. A negative times a negative is going to be positive. X times x is just x squared. All right, and now remember here, since we have x squared, we need to force it to equal 0. All right, we need to force it to equal 0. So all I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna move this stuff to the other side. Okay, so I'm gonna subtract x from both sides, and I'm gonna subtract 6 from both sides. You notice on the right side there's no like terms. So I just created 2 new columns. Since there was no like terms there, I created two new columns. So all of this mess cancels. There's our 0. Then we have x squared minus x minus 6. Okay. Now, since you guys were not a fan of factoring, let's use the quadratic formula. So I have x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. If you're good at factoring, this is real simple to factor. All right, if you're good at it. Well, here is a, there's b, there's c. So a is equal to 1, b is equal to negative 1, c is equal to negative 6. Plug everything in. Remember, when you're substituting, use parentheses. So b, all right, so I have negative. B happens to be negative 1, so I end up with 2 negatives. This negative is that one right there. Plus or minus the square root. B is negative 1, square it. Minus 4 times a is 1, times c, which was negative 6. This whole mess all over 2 times a was 1. All right, x is equal to 2 negatives gives me a positive 1, plus or minus the square root. And just like we've always talked about, I just want you to type all this stuff in underneath the square root. Don't type the square root symbol, but type all that stuff in. We end up with 25 all over 2. So I have 1 plus or minus the square root of 25 is 5 over 2. Now here's where our two answers come from. All right, and remember, this is why we have plus and minus, because we're going to have two answers. So the first one is going to be 1 plus 5 over 2, and then the second answer is 1 minus 5 over 2. So quickly, let's get these answers. It ends up being 6 over 2, which gives me 3. This one ends up being negative 4 over 2, which gives me negative 2. So our two answers are 3 and negative 2. All right, we do have to check them. So let's check. We're going to check both of them. So let's check x equals 3 first. All right, so let's check that one first. And remember, all we're doing is we're just plugging in everywhere we see x. So I have the square root of x plus 6 plus 1 is equal to 7 minus x. And remember, we want the left side and the right side to equal. So I have 3 plus 6 plus 1 outside is equal to, and there should be a question mark there. I always forget. I get lazy. 7 minus 3. All right, and the question mark is because is the left side equal to the right side? I don't know. So 3 plus 6, so we end up with the square root of 9 plus 1 is equal to, all right, or potentially equal to 7 minus 3 gives me 4. On the left side, the square root of 9 is 3 plus 1. Square root of 4 is 2. 3 plus 1, 4 does not equal 2. So what can I say about x equals 3? X equals 3 is extraneous. Remember, we talked about in the last lesson, extraneous means you did all the work correctly. You did all this nonsense correctly. But then when you got over here to this right side where you were checking it, it just doesn't work. Okay? So sometimes that happens. Give myself a little room here. All right, let's check the next one. So what was our other answer? X equaled negative 2. All right, so we're going to check that one. So x plus 6 plus 1 is equal to the square root of 7 minus x. Now let's plug in negative 2. So I have negative 2 plus 6 plus 1. And again, I want to know, does it equal the square root of 7 minus? Well, because I'm going to have two negatives, I'm going to put that negative 2 in parentheses. Because I absolutely hate having two signs like this next to each other. All right, that drives me crazy. So I need that parenthesis in between. Now, is it absolutely necessary? No, but it's just a personal thing. It just drives me crazy. So negative 2 plus 6. So I have 4 plus 1. Over here, those two negatives now, those two negatives are going to become positive. So 7 plus 2, square root of 9. So square root of 4 gives me 2 plus 1. Square root of 9 is 3. 3 equals 3. So this one checks out. All right. So this one has one extraneous, one that works, right? One solution that works, and the other one is extraneous. Tough problems, all right? Some tough problems. I told you in the beginning, I don't want to hear no crying and complaining. Well, now you can cry and complain, all right?